I've met a few politicians. I don't know a lot. And I would say they're not great people. And I didn't always know that. I learned that recently over the past 2.5 years, because I know what your obligation is. You know, whether you're a pastor, whether you're a politician, whether you're a journalist, whether you're a professor, I know where your heart should be. And the fact that it isn't, the fact that you're willing to justify genocide.
Yeah.
And that justification can be, yes, it can be just silence. It can be an unwillingness to confront a reality that is in your face, in all of our faces.
Yeah.
What does that cost you?
Welcome to Stars and Stars with Issa. This is the show where we look to the stars above with the stars below. I'm Issa Nakazawa, your host and resident astrologer, and I can't believe we're at the finale of season 2. I'm so excited to wrap this incredible season by sitting down in the studio with someone who's been a longtime dream guest of mine, visionary poet, musician, actor, filmmaker, and so much more, the one and only Saul Williams. For decades, Saul's work has influenced so much of the way we understand language, resistance, and our own imagination. From his 1998 film Slam, which helped introduce the world to spoken word poetry, to his music, books, and films, he's always used art to critique and challenge power. Saul just released his debut graphic novel, Martyr Loser King. It's a cyberpunk epic that fuses mythology, cosmic memory, and Afrofuturism to confront our relationship with technology, capitalism, and colonialism. In our conversation, we talk all about how he embodies his Scorpio rising and Virgo moon by refusing to look away, and just how he became a Paul Robeson scholar. So without further ado, let's get into our final episode of season 2. Saul, it is such a blessing and an honor to have you join Stars and Stars. I've been literally dreaming about it, especially having you close out season 2. So thank you so much for being here with me in person.
It's a pleasure to be here.
And as I was just sharing, you have one of the coolest charts I've ever seen. So there's so much for us to discuss.
All right, let's go.
And, you know, one of the first things that I was thinking about was the through line of the Dogon people and the cosmology, and just the way that as a young person, you kind of cracked open my heart and my brain, like wide open, because there was always this weaving and threading in your work when I was like a child, you know, that struck such a deep chord of cosmology being woven in, the sun, the moon, all of these different time signatures, all of these different references, and the political realities. Yeah. And as a young person, like I needed that permission. And also the way you spoke electrified me straight up. Like I was like, oh, the power of the word, not just music, the marriage of both struck such a chord in me. And I see that when I see the origin story, that I'm so curious what your relationship to is. You're born on a full moon. You're born on a leap year day, February 29th, if I may say publicly, which I didn't know. Yeah. And there's a lore that your mother was actually at a James Brown concert. Can you confirm?
Oh, I can confirm. In fact, I learned something new recently. So my mom was there with my 2 older sisters, and I started kicking wildly at the concert, and she had to leave my sisters with a security person that she knew. She recognized one of the security people because they were a member of my dad's church. Ooh. And the ambulance came and brought her from the concert. And when she got inside the ambulance, this is what she just told me. The ambulance workers were like, oh my gosh, you got us free tickets to James Brown. Thank you so much. Like they were thanking her because they got to go into the James Brown concert.
This is like community. You're like, I know the security guard. And how old were your sisters that she's leaving them?
We're all 4 years apart. So I guess they were 4 and 8, or 3 and 7, something like that.
Oh, so this is in all y'all's DNA. This is the funk.
Yep, for sure.
Okay, so before we get into the details of your chart, we were just talking about this, but I want to know your specific relationship to your birth chart and astrology, because that was kind of what I was thinking about with just all of your early work referenced kind of the planets. So what would you say is your relationship to the cosmos?
I think because of the fact that my birthday is February 29th, and so I spent the majority of my youth, having to answer the question as to why I didn't have a birthday that year. I'm 13 years old. And that's how I identify. Primarily because it kind of keyed me into how much we had been robbed of in relationship to time, and also culture. And oftentimes I think of the church, for example, the Catholic Church, as like the original startup. Because, even atheists and whatever, they'll all be like, it's 2026.
Yeah.
And I'm like, 2026 years since what?
Right.
Since what?
So Pisces of you.
Right.
So for our listeners who don't know your chart, you are a 29 degree, which we'll explain in a second, Scorpio ascendant by my calculation, a Pisces sun, and a Virgo moon. And so we're going to start with the ascendant, which changes 1 degree every 4 minutes. It's deeply personal. I like to think of it very much visually. Like I like to think of it as an ascension point when we arrive and we announce ourselves. And I also like to think of it as a clef of music that sets the tone, that sets like the way that we're going to navigate through life, right? So it's not our sun, it's not our vitality, our source of energy. It's more kind of a navigation system. And the 29 degree in astrology, we call it the anaretic degree, and it marks kind of this high wattage culmination point. And I found that really, just from my own, relationship to your work, that rang really true for me. Like there's this urgency that I heard behind your words, the delivery, but also the content of it. And the 29th degree is about to turn into 0 degree Sagittarius. So it's that kind of shade of when something ends and we're kind of eager to announce what we've learned, but we also are eager to become a child again. You're also born on a full moon, right? So there's this relationship between the light and the dark. And I want to start there with like if you could paint a picture of like your early environment. And I wonder if that resonates of like, it sounds like you were really cultivated and encouraged by your parents to embrace this sense of high wattage Saulness. So I wonder if you could take us back there and describe some of those kind of ingredients.
So I grew up primarily in a city called Newberg, New York, which is about 60 miles upstate from New York City, on the Hudson River. My father was a pastor of a Baptist church. My mother was a school teacher. They were both active in the civil rights movement. I lived in what I might call a culturally middle class house, which is to say there wasn't money necessarily, but there were books.
Yeah.
And a lot of people passing through. One of our neighbors, for example, was Pete Seeger.
Wow.
Who would sometimes come and sing at my dad's church, and was a friend of the family and what have you. Artists like Odetta would pass through. There was that sort of thing. I grew up in a house that was built by Stanford White. I don't know if you know who Stanford White is. So Stanford White built Madison Square Garden. He was also murdered in Madison Square Garden in 1906, which is the year that the completion of the house that I grew up in was built. He built it for himself in Newberg. Newberg was destined to be, at that time, the place where the rich New Yorkers, the Astors, the Rockefellers, whatever, would go on their weekends or whatever to get out of the city. This is before the bridges and the highways, and that place ended up becoming Long Island. So Newberg had all these mansions and what have you that became dilapidated and were abandoned because the rich New Yorkers who had built them ended up not living there. And so my parents found this 28-room house with 9 fireplaces for $30,000 in the 70s. It was so fucking cold.
Facts. I was just in New York. How did we do it?
So
How did we do it?
fucking cold. But
that made us too.
Yeah. My parents were both from Brooklyn, and they were like, "What? We're doing this. We're doing this." And I grew up in that house with lots of rooms and watching like The Shining. I watched The Shining as a kid in that house, Home Alone or whatever.
So Scorpio rising.
And like, oh, that's what I want. That's how I decided I wanted to be an actor, was by watching The Shining. But I grew up in the church as well, and it was a black church with an extraordinary choir, an extraordinary city. Newberg is an extraordinary city. A lot of love and focus goes to Beacon now, but Beacon was empty when I grew up.
Right, how things change.
Yeah. Newberg is a really has a special energy, and And so, yeah, you know, like walked to school, was rapping, got jumped a few times.
Yeah, just growing up.
Just growing up stuff, you know, like all this type of stuff. You know, it was also very violent, a lot of shootouts, lots of guns, lots of drugs, lots of crack. It was all of that, you know, in the 80s.
Yeah.
Growing up in Newberg. It was pretty wild. So it exposed me to a lot. But also there were intellectual strains and you know, on many levels, academic intellectual strains, and then like, let's say like 5%er intellectual strains. You know, it was all types of, you know, ways that we were doing the knowledge, you know, growing up.
I think that shows up so deeply in you. But I think that's why I was curious, because one of the things that I think of when I think of Scorpio risings is this insistence on not looking away. So I love the horror movie example on that tip, but then I think you were an early example for me of when I was young, I was so aware that we were being encouraged to look away. And on all levels.
Yeah, for
like,
sure.
You know, when you're a young person and you have an intense personality and you say the thing or you ask the question to the adults, kind of like The Little Prince, which is my favorite book. And they're like, we don't talk about that. So from a very young age, you're kind of getting the like, that's for the inside house conversation. But Scorpio risings kind of have this role in the zodiac of not looking away. Yeah. And I think that's been such a through line in your work. But I'm so curious, young Saul, like when was there I'm sure it wasn't like one encounter, because that's not life.
Oh, there is a specific moment. Now, mind you, you know, my parents were very encouraging. And when I say that we had books in the house, those books were Amiri Baraka, they were Sonia Sanchez, they were, you know, they were Frantz Fanon, Aimé Césaire. You know, it was there was stuff. If you were looking for it, it was in the house. It was there. Yeah. You know, there is a moment though. The moment for me is when I was 8 or 9, and third grade. I was in third grade, and I'd gotten cast in my first school play. I was cast as Mark Antony in Julius Caesar. I loved it. I loved it from the rehearsals. You know, sitting around the table, dissecting the text. Yeah. What does this mean? What are the hidden meanings? What are the layers? You know, all of the stuff that you do when you're preparing to put something on stage. I love that part of it. I love diving into the text as a group and I really love that, even before we got it on its feet, right? And then we put it on its feet and you know, and I was in love with that process. So I came home one day and I announced at the dinner table, so I've decided I'm going to be an actor when I grow up. I'm 8 years old. My dad immediately says, I'll support you as an actor if you get a law degree.
Wow. Negotiation begins.
Right? Immediately. And my mom has an immediate response to what he says. And she goes, oh, so you should do your next school report on Paul Robeson. He was an actor and a lawyer. And I do that report on Paul Robeson. And I'm there, 8 years old, like looking up, like, what is communism? What is propaganda? What does it mean to be blacklisted?
Right.
And what that did for me is it solidified the role of an artist in relationship to culture and politics. It helped me understand the power of art. I also understood by studying Paul Robeson that he had been stripped from history, that it was important that
for sure.
As a man who was once the most famous singer in all of the United States, who sang in 11 languages, who stood on the front lines fighting fascism in Spain, who's the one who said the artist must take sides.
Yep.
You know, all of this through the McCarthy era, you know, had his passport stricken, him along with his partner, W.E.B. Du Bois, who I say his partner because they had started a newspaper called Freedom together in 1950, and was not allowed to convene in large groups. Was, you know, he was banned from television. First artist to ever be banned from television. Our friend Pete Seeger was banned from television too during the McCarthy era. All of this stuff, right? And so from that moment on, first of all, anytime I was given an option to who I wanted to do a report on, I would once again choose Paul Robeson, and I wouldn't do the same report.
You would find another layer.
I would find another layer.
Yeah.
So from third grade through high school, I did all my reports on Paul Robeson, on different aspects of Paul Robeson's life.
Wow.
I became like a mini Paul Robeson scout.
You might be my entry point to Paul Robeson.
Yeah, but, his relationship to anti-fascism, and of course this is relevant because it's full circle now.
It is.
Because they've made anti-fascists, so-called domestic terrorists now,
Yeah.
which means that, they learn nothing, absolutely nothing. But I learned a lot from Paul Robeson, and I learned a lot from that moment in third grade when my mom said that. So that transformed me. Of course, I didn't have to push against. Like, my dad said that.
Right.
And it stuck with me.
Yeah, I've been thinking about Robeson so much because we've been seeing, you've been asked a lot, like, what has been the cost of speaking out so consistently, not like unrelenting about Palestine, like not just like this week, but like not looking away. And we're asked a lot what the cost has been professionally and not what we gain from it, what we gain from the solidarity, what we gain from speaking truth to power in the sense of living in alignment in our deeper values. But I also think of Robeson at a time where the real cost was exile. The cost was what you're saying, that you're stripped from the archives.
Yeah, I appreciate what you're saying. In thinking about what Palestinians are still suffering through and what also Lebanese and Iranian and Sudanese and Yemeni and Congolese and, so many people are suffering at the hand of American, imperialism and Western imperialism and racial capitalism. I don't think about it in terms of what we've gained. I do often think in terms of what, even in terms of us who are speaking up or trying to share the voices of those who are asking to be heard.
Right.
It does something to witness that level of atrocity on a daily basis. And so how do we deal with grief and how do we move through all of that? And this is as a witness. This is not as someone living through it and walking through it. On the other hand, I think of what it costs the people who hold their tongues, what it costs, the politicians.
Yes.
I think of, I've met a few politicians, I don't know a lot, and I would say they're not great people. And I didn't always know that. I learned that recently over the past 2.5 years because I know what your obligation is. Whether you're a pastor, whether you're a politician, whether you're a journalist, whether you're a professor, I know where your heart should be.
Yeah.
And the fact that it isn't, the fact that you're willing to justify genocide.
Yeah.
And that justification can be, it can be just silence. It can be an unwillingness to confront a reality that is in your face, in all of our faces.
Yeah.
What does that cost you, your silence? What does that cost your soul, the development of your soul? I can tell you, we will never trust you again.
Yeah.
Never. All these politicians playing like, well, you have to understand.
Right.
You don't have to understand anything. I understand. My response is also tempered by the fact that I have, my wife Anisi and I, we and she's from Rwanda, and we shot a film called Neptune Frost, which focuses on extraction, in the Congo and all of this stuff, and the and the way that power, manipulates and is destabilized and works to destabilize and all of this stuff. And it's about these miners and a hacker that empower themselves to fight against these forces, right? I have spent a great deal of time with survivors of genocide.
Yeah.
An enormous amount of time with actual survivors of genocide, with stories that are unimaginable, with grief and reckoning that is unimaginable. And my response to what's happening in Palestine also had a lot to do with that I had spent so much time with survivors who, yes, had questions about solidarity, who, yes, had questions about pre-social media even, whether the world knew or cared.
Yeah.
And here we have these tools.
Yeah.
We have these tools, and I don't look at, regardless of ownership, I don't look at that stuff as the master's tools.
Yeah. How do you look at it?
Well, because, the masters would, want complete dominion over air and water.
Right.
If they have it their way, those are the master's tools too.
Yeah.
Food.
Yeah. No, it's real. Yeah.
Monsanto, all of this stuff. According to them.
Yeah, it's all.
They weaponize all of it against us.
Yes.
I give them none of that. None of that is their tools. Their tools are genocide, misery, violence, repression. Those are their tools.
Yeah.
And those are the tools I will not use. All the other ones, I'll use them.
Yeah, it's so interesting because your moon in Virgo is in the 11th house of the collective, right? And I think of that as the congregation as an example. I also think of that as an assemblage of teachers or influences. And then your ascendant ruler, the helm of your ship, we call it in my tradition, is your Mars. Because in ancient astrology, Scorpios are ruled by Mars, not Pluto yet, because we haven't discovered Pluto yet. And it's in the 7th house. And the 7th house represents the other, or it represents the mirror, it represents the partner. So you have these two, your moon and your Mars, which are two of the planets that we think of when we think of connection and relationship in these collective houses that deal with, and I feel like you invoke so much your teachers, even in your writing, in your interviews, you always say names.
Well, yeah. I do
you cite very well.
Well, I definitely try to cite because it's also an opportunity to share
it is.
information.
Yes.
To share information.
And to demystify that
and
I'm
self-made.
Yeah,
right. Exactly. I know you work with whole signs and the whole nine, but I know that I also have a Scorpio, a Sagittarius ascendant.
Yes.
And I don't understand how it is that I have, is it normal for people to have both?
No, you're very unique in that because every single degree in the 30 degrees, but we don't really count 30, changes every 4 minutes. So
so there's 29 degrees?
Exactly.
Oh.
So you gave me a birth time of 12:30.
Yeah.
So let's say, and this is very common.
Maybe it's 12:29.
Exactly. Let's say there's an error,
Yeah.
a notation error that could be 5 to 10 minutes off.
Yeah.
If it's later, now you're a Sagittarius rising, 0 degrees, 1 degree. If it's earlier, you're still Scorpio. Does that make sense?
Got you.
But if you're later, which is unlikely, it would be more likely that you were earlier, which means you'd still be within the realm of Scorpio.
Okay.
So you're ruled by Scorpio, and that planet is ruled by Mars. So we look at your chart. Where is Mars? Mars is what we call in exile, right? That there's a theme of our conversation in exile.
Okay.
We also call it, the technical term is detriment, which I think is less poetic, but in exile in Taurus. What that means is the planet is in territory opposite to its own condition or nature. So when you think of
that's
Mars,
like us on occupied land. Look at
that. And then your Venus, your natal Venus, is in Aries. So your Venus is where Mars wants to be, and your Mars is where Venus wants to be. And we call that in astrology a mutual reception, where it creates a form of mutual aid because the planets are in like opposite signs to their home sign. So they start to kind of feed each other.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, I was kind of blown away by it because it reminds me a lot of you and your work. And even I was thinking too about your Pisces, Sun and Mercury, and Bruce Lee's concept of be water. And martial arts is what came to mind.
Yeah.
And I was thinking of how, wow, like Saul's work was always this reminder for me of a form of martial arts. That poetry for me as a young kid became my martial arts.
Oh, without a doubt. I've used that analogy before, even in describing that moment of popularity, for example, with poetry and open mics and slam poetry and what have you, and people want to talk about that moment that happened, from the mid-90s onward. For many, it was the birth of slam and all of that sort of stuff. It was very much like, the skateboard craze or martial arts craze. Of course, the difference is that with martial arts, that it's something that it's not a difference. It's through martial arts that we acknowledge that this is, it's never just a trend or a craze.
Totally.
It's something that balances our understanding of our body, of our power, of how to move and shift power, how to stand in our power, how to defend, all of these things. Like it's very crucial, and I appreciate that relationship, because I do look at poetry particularly like that. It's very funny also too now, because I recently I've been looking at some of my older poems where I'm like, oh, there's so much beautiful imagery and stars and planets, and and my most recent poems are like 1-inch punch.
Yeah.
Like the most recent poem I've been working on, the opening line is horrendous. It's I have never seen so many dead children. And there's no anything.
Yep.
It's just, and it's true, and I haven't, and I'm reckoning with that, as we all are, as we work to bring this empire to its necessary close.
But that to me is such a good example of the martial arts.
Yeah.
Is your honing of it.
Yeah.
It really reminded me, I wasn't just using to be cute, because now I feel like it can be cute to quote Bruce Lee, but it really feels specific to you.
It's always cute to quote.
Because people should really listen to that full interview.
Yeah.
I think it's his only interview. The interviewer is so infuriating, and it actually kind of works, because the interviewer is so not understanding that it continuously makes Bruce have to like re-articulate. And he's saying that it's like true mastery comes through that flow. And actually, I got a copy of Martyr Loser King, the graphic novel, coming out. And I was like, Saul always has a way, again, this is my relationship to your work, of making love into the poems and songs. And that's so important to me, like pleasure and love as central, because I grew up very militant, around a lot of activism. It was not activism. It was way more revolutionary than that.
I get it. But I know that for me, when I raised the question of like, nigga, why are you so angry? Like I was like, it's because I love people. It's because I love humanity.
Yeah.
And I hold a vision of that is not my vision. That is a shared vision of what is possible in our lifetimes and on this planet. And it makes me angry that there are people literally and consciously working against that. It's all rooted in love.
Yeah.
It's all rooted in love. We are fighting to defend love.
Yeah.
We are fighting to defend love.
Yeah.
They're trying to sell us this fake kind of I stand with Israel love, which is not love. You know what I'm saying? Which is rooted in denial, rooted in murder, rooted in narcissism.
Absolutely.
No, thank you. Yeah. So I have no beef now. When I found that answer immediately, when I was like, okay, it's true. You sound very. There was a moment. It was probably like 2008 or something where I listened back.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm reading back and listening back to some of my stuff.
Like,
and I was like, wow, you sound crazy.
That's relatable.
You got a lot to say. Huh?
But then you realize the why. Is that what you're saying?
I realized the why.
What's behind
and then
it?
I worked on an album at that time. I was living in Paris, so it's around the time that you were there. I decided to work on an album called Volcanic Sunlight at that time, where I wanted to explore love. And through expression, right?
Yeah.
The expression of love. But yeah, it's always been there. I know in the 2003 book, Said the Shotgun to the Head, which starts with talking about a kiss and the power of a kiss.
I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, it starts like that. But it is definitely about, the necessary crumbling of empire, also as it relates to our relationship to, organized religion and all of this stuff. And so, that balance, I think, of love and life. And I'm sure that there's some people regarding, depending on where they or how they encounter me. I did not identify as a poet until like 10 years into that.
Right.
Like I would not call myself a poet. I would say I write poetry, but they'd be like, what? They ask, what do you do? I write. You write what? Oh, I write poetry. So you're a poet. Hmm? It felt like a compliment to be called that, but it felt arrogant to call myself that because I felt like I have a lot of work to do. I have a lot of reading to do. I have a lot I need to catch up on before I feel comfortable calling myself that. But I do appreciate the fact that you've called me that. I see it as an honor.
Yeah.
You know? But I did realize that there was if you were to be figureheaded in that way, then you better be feeding people something that they can chew on and that they can, and that's going to actually be rewarding in a way that has more to do with that than with the idea of like, you know, who's going to be the first poet with a Netflix special or whatever the fuck.
Totally.
You know, the sideline careerist sort of thing. It's like, no, let's build character. Let's build ourselves. Let's build it because even then it was clear that we were at war.
Yes.
And if it's not clear now, I don't know where the fuck you are.
Y'all gotta, that's on y'all at that point.
You know, and so I'm grateful for all of those people, a lot of those people that came up through those poetry readings at that time now work in schools and universities, in prisons, whether they're doing astrology or law or whatever the fuck, or both, you know? All of those things. Well, I mean, these are the same thing.
We gotta make your dad proud, man.
These are the same thing.
I'm good on the law, sir, but I got the cosmos. Yeah, I mean,
but we've gone into all of these different fields, but we carry something that helped us learn the importance of articulating something beyond ourselves.
Absolutely.
Right? And that's the necessity of it. That's what we played a role in popularizing. We popularized that despite everything.
Yeah.
Either way, it always seems like a miracle when poetry takes the spotlight because it's like, holy shit, okay. It says something, but thinking about Frantz Fanon and The Wretched of the Earth and what he has to say about the cycles of culture and relationship to the political education of the people and moving towards, you know, revolution, there's a necessity for that. There's a great necessity. It reflects something, but it also pushes something.
Yes.
Right? I think of all of the contributions that have been made. You know what I'm saying? There's all these contributions that have been made, which are crucial works, which are crucial for the transformation, not just crucial for anything, crucial because you sold 1 million copies or whatever. No, crucial because we are in the process, as we were then, of working on people to help us all get to the point of burning and breaking the shit down. Like it's all rooted in, you know, these positions of indigenous sovereignty and black liberation. Like that's all of this, that's what it was for then. And that's what it's for now.
Yes. So, thank you so much, Saul. This has been, I could talk to you for like 4 more hours and I would like to, but I do, before we close, like you have Martyr Loser King coming out. I believe it will be out.
Yeah, it'll be out.
It's out now.
It comes out on Tuesday. It's out now, so it's out.
Where do you want people to purchase it or how?
Independent bookshops.
Yes.
It's great. It's a beautiful graphic novel. But yeah, I would love it if people support, you know, if you're buying something online, I might do bookshop.org, or if you know local black or queer bookshops, you can do that. You can ask, if they don't have it, you can ask them to order it. But independent booksellers would be best.
Are you still touring with Carlos?
Yeah. I still have. I'm done touring with Carlos in the U.S. So now we're on to New Zealand, Australia, and Europe. That's what we're in the midst of now, or about to jump on now, and then there's more announcements in terms of music and other stuff.
How do you like to best stay connected with on the social medias?
Instagram is fine. You know, any of those things. Instagram, Facebook. I have.
And it's Saul Williams.
I have accounts. It's Saul Williams.
The only one.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Saul.
It's a pleasure.
It's such a pleasure. That was Saul, who is a Pisces sun. As always, to end the show, I want to leave you with some key takeaways we can all benefit from, inspired by our stars chart. So, of course, I couldn't think of a better person to close out season 2 of Stars and Stars than Saul. One of the most illuminating signatures in Saul's chart is the mutual reception between his Venus in Aries and Mars in Taurus. In astrology, this creates a dynamic exchange between love and action, where each one resources the other. Venus in Aries speaks to a bold, initiating kind of love, while Mars in Taurus reflects endurance and the ability to stay rooted in what truly matters. Together, they describe a way of moving through the world where love is not passive nor pacified. It's something that keeps us alive and keeps us ticking and awake. Saul spoke about poetry as a kind of martial arts rather than performance, more as a discipline. It becomes a way of training yourself to stand in your truth, to move with intention, and to defend what matters without losing your center. That perspective is deeply connected to the lineage of Paul Robeson, a revolutionary artist who understood that the role of art is to be in service of liberation, and that love of humanity demands courage and risk. What feels especially powerful is how this theme has carried through every guest this season. In different ways, they have all shown us that loving out loud is not about sentiment, but about solidarity. It's about refusing to look away and choosing to stay engaged with what's real. So the takeaway is this: let your love be strong enough to endure, let your truth be clear enough to act on, and allow your life to reflect what you know is worth standing up for. And that's it for season 2, y'all. I just have to say from the bottom of my heart, a big bow of gratitude to each and every one of you who took the time to listen, to share the show, to send me a message of feedback or leave a comment. None of this is possible without you, without our amazing, beautiful guests, and without the team that makes it possible every week. I'm just so appreciative and grateful, and I know my entire team is. So thank y'all so much. And if you like today's episode, please leave a comment to keep the conversation going. Hit that subscribe button. And remember, we're live on YouTube every Wednesday answering your cosmic questions. I promise we're going to keep that up. Thank you so much again for listening, and stay tuned for more. Please follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Stars and Stars with Issa to stay connected. Thank you.